Tauros, the wild bull Pokémon. As one of what I feel to be the staple Pokémon of Generation 1, Tauros is an offensive force to be reckoned with. Welcome, I'm exceptional and I hope you are too. Today I will be playing through Pokémon FireRed using nothing but a Tauros. My rules are listed in the description, but the most impactful rules are: I can only use my starter in battle, no items in trainer battles except held items, no glitches, exploits, or RNG manipulations, accuracy moves aren't explicitly banned, but they will be avoided, and lastly, I will be playing at 4 times game speed. Tauros' base stats make it quite formidable. At 490 with our standout stats in physical attack at 100, defense at 95, and speed at 110. Our problem stat is going to be special attack, but honestly I don't see a lot of need for it. For that reason I'll also be choosing an adamant nature to boost our attack and reduce our special attack. Through level up, Tauros learns quite a big suite of normal moves, with the Dark-type Pursuit and Rest being mixed in. Funny enough though, the only move among these that I see potentially making the final moveset is Rest. There are much better options in our TM and HMs. I always have to appreciate the original Generation 1 normal-type Pokemon's learn sets. This bull has it all. Water, ice, fire, electric, grass, all of which are special stats, so we'll instead be focusing on the ground, rock, steel, and normal options. What a fantastic and diverse move pool. Unsurprisingly, our bold, imposing, grand Tauros isn't going to have any early game struggles until Brock. We will only have access to normal type moves which Brock resists, so I will make sure to clear out as many encounters as I can on the way. One thing I haven't mentioned in my videos to this point is experience curves. There are several different rates that Pokemon can level up as they gain experience. Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, for instance, are part of the medium slow growth rate group, whereas Tauros is in the slow group. This will have a negative impact on its overall time as it's taking much more experience to level up. This is a potential drawback of playing with more powerful Pokemon. With that being said, there are slow growth rate Pokemon that aren't very powerful initially, such as Dratini or Magikarp. After defeating everything in our path, we reach Brock himself at the first gym. He leads with Geodude. The best strategy that there can be against Brock is to do more damage to him while taking the least amount of damage. Oh, that's just how battling works in general. Right. I mix in a few tail whips before beginning my horn attack assault. What I need from Geodude is defense curls, but ideally after I get some damage in. It eventually goes down while we're still at 34 hit points. Onix, however, has a lot more damage potential against Tauros. It has Screech, which can sharply lower our defense, and Stab Rock Tomb, the combo of which can be devastating. Tackle seemed to only do about 1 hit point against Onix, so I switched to Tail Whip. I then whittle down Onix's health with Horn Attack, but it's still outdamaging us. Onix takes us down for a surprisingly early reset for Tauros. In the following battle, though, I get the same result against Geodude, and we come into Onix at 86% health. Against the Onix, we get a lot more luck this time with how many Rock Tombs it ends up missing. The Rock Snack is no match for BIG in this battle as we take it down and leave behind Tauros' first and likely only roadblock for a very long time. We skip right ahead to Cerulean City where I see Rival 2 being less of a threat than Misty. So I engage him and Tauros starts strong by taking down Pidgeotto in 2 horn attacks and without being sand attacked. Oh yeah! Yu sends out Rattata and Abra, which both get instantly pancaked by Tauros. Against Bulbasaur, I continue mashing A while it puts Tauros to sleep. Tauros enjoys its siesta before waking up and finishing the battle. The rival fight marks the only speed bump I could foresee for Tauros until the late game, but we'll see if we encounter any more along the way. I blast through all of the following trainers on Nugget Bridge and Route 25. I'm only clearing what I absolutely need to at this point. I also make sure to pull Camper Flint down so I can grab TM43 Secret Power. This base 70 power normal move will be our bread and butter until after Rock Tunnel. I also equipped a Persimberry just to be safe. Misty leads with Staryu. Achoo! Oh, excuse me. Staryu's gone. Starmie's fate isn't going to be much different as it hits a water pulse for about a third of our very nice max HP, while Tauros does over half with secret power. We don't get confused, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway, as we take it down for badge number 2 and the first gym leader to fall to this parading bull. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Tauros on parade! On SSN, I grab a few more items, including TM44 Rest from the lower floor. I realize we learn it through level up, but having the option to remove it while still having access to the move later feels smart. Rival 3 is a total pushover now with our slightly upgraded bowl and slightly upgraded moveset. I won't even bother fully explaining the fight aside from everything gets one-shot. Oh, Ivysaur survived. Oh, never mind. I defeat you again. Next is Lieutenant Surge, and even though we're an absolute beast, I still want to play things a little safe. I equip a Cherry Berry to Tauros, but really, my only thinking is that getting paralyzed from static and having bad luck would be the only way we lose this. Voltorb comes out and falls immediately. Maybe if a whole bunch of Voltorbs got together and were all at Tauros' feet, forcing him to roll a strength saving throw or be knocked prone and... Oh, wait, that's the wrong game. Pikachu goes down too. We come into Surge's Ace Raichu with full health and our berry intact. Turn 1, we don't quite get the one-shot with Secret Power, and Raichu fires back with a Thunder Wave, activating our berry. Surge heals while Tauros refuses to take no for an answer. On my final Horn attack, we take down Raichu, but get paralyzed from static. Good on ya, Surgy. A really nice thing about the diversity of Tauros' moveset is that before going through Rock Tunnel, I taught TM3 Water Pulse, which we got from Misty. This allows Tauros to stomp through all of the rock ground type Pokemon in the tunnel with a 4-time super effective move. A terrible special attack stat won't save these rocks from being eroded. Coming into Lavender Town, my first priority is to head to the gatehouse just south of the town to pick up TM27 Return. I've grabbed this on a few runs, but I've never really explained it. Return's power is based off of your Pokemon's friendship level. Winning battles and feeding a Pokemon vitamins are ways of increasing friendship, while fainting or feeding bitter items like herbal medicines will decrease friendship. The maximum base power that Return can have is 102, so when that gets modified by Stab or same type attack bonus on Tauros, it becomes 153. I have set Tauros' hidden power to Rock in this run, though I doubt we'll need it as a super effective HP Rock is still doing less damage than a standard Return with an effective power of 140 and 153 respectively. This powerful high power point move will be Tauros' primary attack for the rest of the run. I decide to clear out Erika's gym next. I elect to defeat the two trainers on the left-hand side as the Bellsprout line gives attack EVs and Execute gives special defense. Erika leads with Victory Bell. As you can see, we're only about 3 levels higher than Victory Bell, so our advantage isn't so distinct. Return is doing big damage, but with the paralysis we take a little bit too much and end up going down. That marks reset number 2 for Tauros. The following battle goes much better. I lead with Rock Tomb for some chip damage to avoid knocking it down into heal range. Victory Bell uses Stun Spore, but this time I have a Cherry Berry equipped to solve that. We take it down with a follow-up Return. The Tangela as well, I decide to chip away at its health before going for the KO. Giga Drain does a bit of damage, but Torlos barely feels it on its march to victory. Vileplume puts Tauros to sleep, and after all of this hard work, it just stays asleep. All the way until Vileplume knocks it out. Alright, that was just bad luck. This time I decide, just because the karmic balance owes me, I am now gonna go full aggro with Return. And with the crit against the Vileplume, it works. Honestly, I think it would have worked regardless, we just got some very bad sleep luck in the last attempt. Rival 4 doesn't pose much of a threat with the power of friendship on our side, but this battle gives me a great opportunity to talk about why I chose Bulbasaur for the Rivals team. At first I was thinking Charizard, but with a rock move I'd be doing 4 times damage against it. The reason I went with Bulbasaur was actually because of the Gyarados and Arcanine. Both of them have Intimidate, and since all of our attacks are physical, it seemed like the way of introducing the most challenge to Tauros. That is, after all, the spirit of the rival in this game, to challenge you as you progress. At this stage though, it's not enough to stop us, and Toro adds another W to its collection. I decide to take on Sylph next, as clearing out the Rocket plotline before going to Fuchsia would be optimal. But Rival 5 stands in the way, and he is a big upgrade from the previous encounter. This is where Tauros is going to start to be tested. I don't exactly have a plan against Rival 5, but for now I'm just feeling the fight out. Return takes Pidgeot down in 2. Even with Rock Tomb on our moveset, Return is doing way more damage. Gyarados comes out and falls immediately to a crit Return, but then Growlithe hits the field and we start to see the effects of the double Intimidate. At -2 attack, we cannot one-shot Growlithe, but we still do take it down. Alakazam comes out and we don't even one-shot the very physically frail Psychic type, allowing it to set up Reflect, reducing our physical damage even further. Rival 5's Ace Venusaur now enters and we immediately see the effects of -2 attack behind Reflect against a bulkier Pokemon. Return does an absolutely pitiful amount of damage as Venusaur puts us to sleep. Even once Reflect wears off and we get in one more hit, it's obvious that having our attack lowered is a big problem. But I might have an idea for that. As I now step out of the Safari Zone, there is a Kangaskhan pen to our left. Admiring the Kanga is this creep who will teach Substitute. I'm happy to hear your lesson, but sharing that you want to crawl inside a Kangaskhan belly pouch is a little bit weird for me, dude. While I'm down in Fuchsia, I might as well take on Koga. I lead with Substitute to avoid Smokescreen. Substitute will take damage in the place of Tauros, but has an added effect of absorbing status abilities. Therefore, Smokescreen, or Intimidate for example, won't affect Tauros. Coughing 1 fell and Muck follows after being a bit of a thorn in our side, setting up evasion and healing. I forego a second Substitute and just take Coughing 2 down in one return, bringing us to Wheezing. I deal over half health to him as he uses Toxic, a nasty poison move that will take us out in just a few turns. Unless I have a berry. Tauros smirks as our superior tactics pulverize Wheezing and net us our 5th gym badge. I now come back to Sylph and check out how much of a difference Substitute makes against Rival 5. Pidgeot is out and does some damage to our Substitute while we knock it down. Gyarados comes out and from behind the sub we aren't intimidated by its shenanigans. It falls and we give Growlithe and Alakazam similar treatments. We now come to Venusaur with just over a 5th of our health missing and all of our stats intact. With the playing field leveled, Tauros rings Venusaur's bell. It only takes 2 returns to take it out while Tauros continues its concise, constant conquering of its current conflict. That brings us immediately to Sabrina. Tauros is a fast, reasonably bulky physical attacker, making it Sabrina's worst nightmare. I barely put any thought into this fight, as with 4 returns we have 4 KOs, 6 gym badges in hand, and we're off to challenge Cinnabar. I've been skipping the majority of trainers between Sabrina and Blaine, including the trainers in his gym. We're on a roll and we can't be stopped now. Blaine also has 2 Intimidates on his team, one of which can't be avoided. You can see my hesitation as I decide how to do this. I go for return, taking down Growlithe. Ponyta also falls in 1, and Rapidash comes out. We aren't quite doing enough for a one-shot, but definitely are putting it into heal range over and over as Blaine burns all his hyper potions. Unfortunately, I haven't set up a sub, so we will be getting hit with the second Intimidate. Arcanine is out, and oh my, Fire Blast is doing a lot of damage. We are 2 levels lower than Arcanine, mind you, and our special defense isn't the greatest. We take down Blaine on the next turn, and oh yeah, we're onto our 8th gym badge. Just over an hour on the clock and level 45, doing good. We now come into Giovanni. As you can see, Water Pulse is still in our moveset, and I've honestly kept it this long specifically because of the Giovanni fights. We aren't one-shotting Nidoqueen, but that's to be expected. Unfortunately, after Giovanni uses a Hyper Potion, we do get poisoned by Poison Point. In combination with the Earthquake damage from before and more poison damage, Tauros is looking a little rough. Nidoking comes out and is not a one-shot, and manages to finish off Tauros with a combination of Earthquake and more poison damage. Alright, but that's an easy fix. Let's just reset the game and... Aw man, the last time I saved was before Blaine? Well, he wasn't that challenging. I guess let's just get it done. As expected, everything at Blaine goes like before. I try to be a little smarter this time and set up a sub against Rapidash, but it burns it away without it being useful at all. We get back to Arcanine with most of our health. Unlike last battle, I know that his Fire Blast is going to be doing an absurd amount of damage. I play for safety instead, trying to stall out all 5 uses of his Fire Blast with Substitute and Rest. This does not go in my favor, and Arcanine takes down Tauros again. Okay, so maybe that loss was just because I tried switching tactics. Next fight, I'll just go full aggro against the Arcanine like I did before, and it'll work, right? Rapidash falls after landing a Fire Blast of its own, and then Arcanine says hello with its own Fire Blast, knocking down Tauros. Well... I step away from Blaine really quickly and go to Route 15 where I pick up TM18 Rain Dance. I'm hoping that I'll be able to set this up before the Arcanine and maybe even before the Rapidash to reduce Blaine's fire damage. Will this make the difference? Now back at Blaine, I decide to try setting up against the Growlithe. This ends up being a mistake, as by the time we make it back to Arcanine, we have no rain, no substitute, and less health than we've had previously at this point. This last little stint against Arcanine is just information seeking at this point. I set up a sub, and then fortunately he misses a Fire Blast, allowing me to set up rain and confirm that even in the rain, his Fire Blast take out our sub in one shot. Alright, I think I see what I need to do here. I take out the first two Pokemon immediately and then attempt to set up against the Rapidash. In reviewing the footage, I can see a couple of my move choices here being suboptimal, but roughly gets the job done. Rapidash falls and we enter Arcanine with a substitute up. It misses its first Fire Blast as we set up Rain on turn 1. I then go for Water Pulse, hoping for the confusion as Blaine knocks down our substitute. I cross my fingers, hit return, and oh no, we didn't do enough damage. Arcanine hits another Fire Blast, but Tauros holds on with 3 hit points. No way. I hope and hope not to see a Hyper Potion. We don't, and down goes Arcanine. Alright, that little setback was kind of a pain, but I'm glad it happened in the first playthrough instead of getting surprised by Blaine in the next playthrough. Even when I'm playing strong Pokemon, I must remember to save often. Back in Giovanni's gym, I accidentally move a little too far forward. It happens on 4 times game speed, and this trainer engages me. What follows is the most ludicrous battle I've seen in a long time. Look at how many times Tauros is missing because of a single sand attack from the first turn. That, in combination with Sandstorm chip damage and Onix's constant attacks, actually result in Tauros going down again. Another reset. At least we... Oh, come on, again? Right, so... Shaking that off for the second time, we come back into Giovanni. I make sure to set up a sub on turn 1, and this is actually going to avoid Scary Face, but I was doing it to set up safety against the Nidos. I do some chip damage first against the Nidoqueen so that I don't put her in heal range, and as always, I'm hoping for that secondary confusion. Nidoking is back out, but we're in a much better position than last time. We do get the confusion against it, but it doesn't really amount to anything as it falls to return. His following Dugtrio and Rhyhorn both fall in one hit as well. With that, Tauros finally finishes its gym challenge. I think I'm going to go save quick. After resisting the urge to save a few more times just in case, we enter Rival 6. We start as always against the Pidgeot, and after a bit of an exchange, Pidgeot lands a Feather Dance, reducing our attack by 2 stages. I take it out with return, but immediately decide to reset, as I'm not interested in dragging out a battle that I'm already -2 in. Round 2 goes a lot smoother when I set up Substitute on turn 1, causing Pidgeot to fail a Feather Dance. Twice! We take the Birdo down with 2 returns. Rhyhorn is next, and I still have Water Pulse on my side, which I use to delete Rhyhorn. Next! Gyarados is out, fails Intimidate against our sub, and then fails a Leer against our sub. Substitute really seems to mess with the trainer AI. Growlithe also fails to Intimidate our Bull, and we take it down with return. Alakazam is next, and my only concern against it is speed. At this level, though, we are outspeeding it, and it falls easily. Venusaur vs. Tauros teaches Venusaur a lesson or two in humility. We're 5 levels lower than our rival's ace, take it out along with his whole team, and we have barely a scratch. Now it's time to see how we do against the league. We start the league challenge as always against Lorelei. I haven't used any rare candies or done any grinding up to this point, as I'm interested in seeing how quickly, and therefore how low of a level, Tauros can get through the game. We seem fairly evenly matched against her team as we go back and forth in this first battle. Unfortunately, she has 5 Pokemon and we have 1 that is a lower level than all of hers, which eventually leads to us resetting. Before my second attempt, I decide to teach Sunny Day over Rain Dance. Just like against Blaine, I want to use the weather to reduce Lorelei's damage, as despite her being the Ice-type elite, 4 out of 5 of her Pokemon are the Water-type. This also allows us to cancel Hail, which adds a lot of annoying chip damage. Taking down the Cloyster is a slog, but we eventually do in high green health. Slowbro comes out and is another bulky water Pokemon. It starts setting up Amnesia, though, which in this case is perfect because we're only attacking with our physical attack. With a turn 2 crit against it, we take it down. Against Lapras, we take a big hit from Ice Beam, and it looks like a very small margin on our ability to 2-shot it. We do manage to get the 2-shot with a crit, but I'm not entirely sure that it was necessary. Jinx is very frail, so of course we take it out in 1 hit. Our first league member is down and we're still only at level 51. Way to go, Tauros. Bruno I'm actually a little afraid of. His two Onyxes can hit hard and reduce our speed, while his Hitmons and Machamp deal super effective damage against Tauros. I would wager that a crit cross-chop from Machamp would take out Tauros in one hit easily. Onyx leads and immediately lowers our speed with Rock Tomb. It also seems like the power of Water Pulse is falling off as we don't take it out. Not a huge loss though, as we do take it down and move on to the Hitmonchan. We also don't one-shot it with Return, giving it the opportunity to hit another Rock Tomb and reduce our speed to -2. Then, with a critical Sky Uppercut, Hitmonchan outspeeds and takes down our Bull. Yeah, that one wasn't overly surprising. In the next attempt, I play smarter with a sub and end up coming into the Hitmonlee with fairly high health, my speed intact, and a sub out. Hitmonlee is a little bit squishier than Hitmonchan, so a single return, we do knock it down. Machamp is out and we do just over half with our return while he takes out our sub with Cross Chop. Machamp heals with its Citrus Berry and our second return just barely doesn't do enough damage to take it out, giving it the opportunity to Cross Chop Tauros into oblivion. Ouchie. I think the long-term solution to this fight is to come in at a slightly higher level. We'd be getting much better ranges against the Machamp, as well as we might be able to one-shot the Hitmonchan. In our following battle though, we make it back to Machamp in similar shape to the last fight. This time we get much better luck against it as it misses constantly and hurts itself in confusion. That good old karmic balance always looking out. We take down Machamp. Against his second Onyx, there's no way that we can lose. It hits a critical Earthquake, only managing to break our sub as we take it down with 2 uses of Water Pulse. With that, we're still very underleveled and have 2 league members behind us. Agatha poses a bigger problem for us now. One that I'm about to realize as I move into her room and check my bags. I have exactly one move that will be able to hit her ghosts, Water Pulse. I haven't found TM10 for Hidden Power, so I don't get to use that, and teaching any of my other moves in my TM case would likely be just as effective as Water Pulse. And by effective, I mean not very effective. Check this out. I come into the fight against Gengar and set up a substitute immediately. If we can figure out how to do damage to her, I feel like subs will trivialize this fight and she won't be able to put us to sleep, confuse us, poison us, or any of that other annoying Agatha-y things that she does. Not in this battle though. Water Pulse is doing a pathetic amount of damage and it takes a while. A long while. But we finally work through all of Tauros' power points and start struggling. To nobody's surprise, struggling against the Elite Four is not a good path to victory, so I have to leave and find another way. So let's fast forward about 15 minutes to after I've done some grinding. My solution is to grab TM23 Irontail from the game corner for 3,500 coins. Just like in my Squirtle video though, I'm trying to scrounge this cash together at the last moment, so in my follow-up playthrough I will be grabbing this earlier and doing a bit of additional grinding in the mid-game instead. With that being said, I can now TM27 return to the league and see how Tauros does at a higher level. Alright, and back in the league, this time at level 58. Now you can see that the Lorelei fight is much more consistent. We are more bulky overall, and now hitting much better ranges against all of her Pokemon. Even the Lapras with its Citrus Berry can't stand up to our Mad Bull's Rampage. Bruno is also quite a bit more consistent at this higher level. With the power of subs and friendship on our side, we smash through the Elite Four's Resident Hiker. This has been much smoother this time around, but I feel like our biggest improvement in tactics is going to be against Agatha. Before doing anything else, I teach Tauros Irontail over Water Pulse. Goodbye, old friend, you've served us so well. I didn't mention this in the last fight, but if you didn't notice before, check out how behind a sub this Gengar can't actually do anything to Tauros. Its only attacking move is Shadow Punch, which as a normal move, we're immune to. And after a lot of misses, it eventually falls to Irontail. Golbat isn't especially scary behind a sub. We don't do enough damage for the KO, but after some healing shenanigans from Agatha, it does fall. Arbok can't intimidate us behind a sub, so even though it manages to break our sub, we take down Agatha's third Pokemon with a lot of momentum behind us. Against her Ace Gengar, I set up another sub, and thank goodness I did because Gengar just decides to spam Hypnosis ineffectively for the rest of the fight. Tauros takes it down with Iron Tails, bringing us to the final Haunter, which also fails to a single Iron Tail. Agatha sure is easier when you have moves that can hit her ghosts. Lance is the last member of the League Challenge, and honestly, I'm not sure what to expect here. I'm still having flashbacks to the Aerodactyl from my Charmander run. Ugh. and I understandably have a couple of things to worry about. Gyarados is going to hit Intimidate every time, so we're always in this fight at -1 attack. But there's no sense tiptoeing on the edge. Let's jump right in and see what happens. Gyarados cuts our attack, and we immediately start to feel the effects of it as we cannot quite get the 2-shot against it. This allows Gyarados to stack a ton of additional damage against Tauros before eventually going down. We actually managed to take out the Aerodactyl without incident using 2 Iron Tails. It's doing a lot, but is nowhere near 1-shot range, so the fossil bird thing will always be a 2-shot. Dragonite is a pseudo-legendary Goliath of stats and takes out Tauros with Outrage. Okay. This time I come into the fight at level 63 over the next damage rounding threshold. Gyarados falls much easier this time, but to pick up the slack, Aerodactyl causes more trouble. It gets the fabled Omni boost from its first attack as we miss an Iron Tail and eventually are lowered to 69 health before going into Dragonite. Nice. Dragonite is back out and cleans up Tauros just like last time. I end up wiping another 2 times and level up to 65 before going into this attempt. Gyarados goes down to a crit while I set up a sub against Aerodactyl, dodging a Scary Face. If my speed is reduced, I will lose to the Dragonairs. I take out Aerodactyl with my sub intact for Dragonite. We spam return as it first decides to protect with a safeguard before switching into Outrage for the big damage. Unfortunately for it, all it manages to do is take out our sub before Tauros strikes down the dragon. The Dragonairs pose a bigger problem than anticipated simply because we don't get to one-shot them. This gives them the opportunity to chip away at any remaining health Tauros has and inflicting a nasty paralysis at the very end. It was too little too late though, as Tauros secures the victory. Before going into the champion, I take a second to assess. I make sure to heal up, use an elixir, and admire my Tauros before proceeding to the final battle. I can't see any strategically significant things that we can change about how we approach this fight right now. All we can do is hope that we have enough stats and our strategy is solid against him. Against his lead Pidgeot, we start off by setting up a substitute. It'll be a 2-shot to take it down, and there's nothing I love more than watching sand attacks fail repeatedly against our sub. Sensational. Alakazam comes out, but since we outspeed, it goes down just as quickly. Rhydon is next, and because we're hiding behind our sub, it can't hit us with Scary Face. 2 Iron Tails handle it. Gyarados comes out and breaks our sub with Hydro Pump, exposing us to Arcanine's Intimidate once it comes out. With our damage reduced, we can't quite take down the Fire Doggo, and we fall to 2 Flamethrowers. The following fight goes much the same as the first, except this time I can't hit an Iron Tail against the Rhydon to save my life. Fortunately, all it wants to do is reduce my speed, which it can't because I'm behind a sub, so it eventually falls. Gyarados is out, and this time I know better. It breaks our sub as we take it well below half health. I re-establish our sub while it uses Dragon Rage, which does just under what's needed to break the sub. Hehehe, I take out Gyarados. Arcanine comes out, but this time with our sub and attack stats intact, it falls in 2 returns, only managing to break our sub. Venusaur is last, and its best move against us is Solar Beam, which takes a turn to charge, so Tauros takes it down for pretty much free. Our Wild Bull has done it. Professor Oak seems to love the sound of his voice almost as much as I do, but eventually we get through it and enter the Hall of Fame. Oh, I hope confetti doesn't scare Tauros. No, we're good. Tauros clocks in with a time of 2 hours and 38 seconds at level 66 with 6 hours and 11 minutes of game time and a staggering 33 resets. Most of these are from Silly Things and the Elite Four, most of which can be rectified in the follow-up playthrough. In the famous words of Billy Mays, "But wait, there's more!" In the Generation 3 remakes, we were given a post-game that we can complete. With a Pokemon as formidable as Tauros, you best believe that we're going to go all the way into round 2 here. We do have a couple of chores to do first, though. I start by running all the way up to Viridian City from Pallet Town, as there isn't a PC that allows you to access Bill's system in Pallet. We need our cheerleaders back. One of the chores that you would typically need to do here is catch 60 different types of Pokemon so that Professor Oak will give you the National Dex, opening up access to Islands 4 through 7. As I'm considering round 2 to be bonus content strictly for fun, all I'm going to be doing is changing my dex totals and A-save. Catching 60 Pokemon sounds fun and all, but you know, been there, done that, and I'm more interested in the abilities of the individual Pokemon we're running more than how long it takes me to catch Pokemon. I will allow myself to get items from Professor Oak's aides in round 2, but we'll come back to that. If you're at all interested in seeing the Sevi Island gameplay, let me know in the comments and I'll try to include more of it in a future video. For today though, all we're interested in is getting some triggers fulfilled so we can move on to Elite Four Round 2. The only interesting thing that I did outside of the Sevi Islands was swing by Vermilion City to grab the item finder from Professor Oak's aid. Normally you would need to catch 30 Pokemon species to collect this, but as far as he's concerned, we have all 386. Go us! I then exit the gatehouse heading east, run from the Snorlax, and use our shiny new item finder to pick up the leftovers. This is our GG item. Welcome to the Elite Four Round 2, where the League's members have been leveled up and updated to include Gen 2 Pokemon. No Gen 3 ones for some reason, but hey, I like the variety. Lorelei's lead Dugong is now level 64 instead of 52. My plan is to set up a substitute and smash. After some healing and increased worry on my part as it sets up more double teams, Tauros does manage to take down its first opponent. Now a level 63 Cloyster instead of 51, the nicest thing is that its protectability has been removed. Our bold, imposing Grand Bull is notorious for finding success, and after only 2 returns, Cloyster falls, only having broken our sub. Pillow-swine is at level 63, replaces the level 52 Slowbro. I suppose this change makes sense, as Slowbro was the only team member she formerly had that wasn't the ice type. I re-established my sub to no avail as Pilo breaks it instantly with Earthquake. We tank another Earthquake and take out the swine while sitting in green health. Leftovers is incredible. Jinx leveled up from 54 to 66, but is still equally as frail when it comes to standing up against our bull. Maybe she should have tried the blue dress. I guess I'm a little too focused on establishing subs here because they just keep getting instantly broken in the later part of the fight. I think I should have just gone full aggro here, but with a clutch survival of Ice Beam at 3 hit points, Tauros takes down the level 66 instead of 54 Lapras. It's Bruno time, baby. The biggest change to his team is both the Onyxes have evolved to Steelix and leveled from 51 and 54 to 65 and 66 respectively. Steelix can break my sub with Iron Tail, but I keep setting them up knowing that eventually it'll go for Rock Tomb. This does happen and I fire back with some Earthquakes of my own, taking it down. Hitmonchan is out at level 65 instead of 53. I hit a massive return, and what a terrible range that was. Look at Hitmonchan's health. It counters with Counter, which if we hadn't been behind a sub would have absolutely one-shot us. I take down Hitmonchan the following turn from full with a better range. Machamp joins the battle now at level 68 instead of 56. This thing will rock Tauros' world if it manages to get a direct hit. I set up a sub managing to get a cross-chop miss. Oh, the joys of low accuracy moves. And then take down Machamp in 2 returns. Hitmonlee is also up 12 levels at 65 from 53. As the squishiest member of Bruno's team though, I take it out easily in a single return. The level 66 Steelix comes out and just spams Earthquake over and over and over. Tauros tries its best to hold on, but Steelix overpowers it with a crit. Okay, I don't see much I could do differently here except going in on the Steelix immediately. I end up wiping once more against Bruno's final Steelix just by taking too much damage, but I didn't see any significant changes that I could make aside from leveling up, so I tried again. Upon reviewing the footage, I feel like a lot of the uncertainty in this fight would be removed by coming in 1 level higher at 73 over the next damage rounding threshold. But in this fight, Tauros beasts through it all, taking us to Agatha 2.0. I do end up wiping against her once because of a complete inability to hit Iron Tail. Oh, the joys of a low accuracy move. Her lead Gengar is now 66 instead of 54, and unlike the last one, it can now hit us. I would love to be using Earthquake here, but both Gengars and the upcoming Mischievous all have Levitate, so no ground moves against them. After the first Gengar falls, we face Crobat, another 12 level increase, and evolved from Golbat. It still isn't that threatening to Tauros though, especially once I establish that my sub can tank a Sludge Bomb. We take it out. Arbok is level 68 now, but once again, behind our sub we can't be intimidated by the Cobra. It feels so good to let off my one and only Earthquake this fight, taking it down in 1. Her ace Gengar is now at level 70. They must have decided to make this thing a finisher on her team, as it now knows Shadow Ball, Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Sludge Bomb. What a strange and interesting moveset, especially considering the 2 of these moves use Gengar's absolutely abysmal physical attack stat. I learned in the previous battle that less is more here, so I take it out with 2 Iron Tails and no more fuss. Mischievous is last, replacing the Haunter from her round 1 team. It can't break my sub in one move though, so we're pretty set up to win against it. Tauros handles it with ease and we move on to Lance. As I walk up towards Lance, I can't help but ponder. If Lance was a Dragon Master in round 1, would that now make him a Dragon Doctoral? How long has he been studying and working with dragons? I suddenly have so many questions about the backstory of Lance that Oh, we're here? Okay, let's just fight him instead. Gyarados is now powered all the way up to 68. With this power up comes some new moves which ends up being its downfall, namely Thunder Wave. It just keeps spamming against our sub to no avail, and by the time it starts setting up Dragon Dances, or DD, we take it out. Level 66 Kingdra is next, replacing one of the Dragonairs. It sets up DD and follows up with a nasty Hyper Beam. Unfortunately for it hits a sub and then has to recharge as I set up a new sub and do massive damage against it with return. After a short back and forth, Tauros takes it down. Dragonite comes out and this one is level 66, replacing one of the Dragonairs. No, this is not his ace yet. We exchange some hits, but with the power of leftovers on our side, Tauros has so much sustain in these battles. We take down Discount Dragonite. Aerodactyl is now at level 70. Fun fact, this thing has 208 speed, but Tauros is such a monster that we move first anyway. It also has the disadvantage of not being able to take down our sub in one move, so after a few rounds, Tauros decides it's had enough and takes down Aerodactyl with a critical return. Against the Ace Dragonite, which is now level 72, I hit a bit of a problem. It's used Outrage, and it's looking like Tauros is not long for this fight. I decide to set up a sub to stall Outrage and hope for some confusion luck. But this ace has a Persim Berry to solve that. Clever girl. Dragonite takes us out with just barely some orange bar remaining. After wiping twice more in a similar way, I decide to bite the bullet and use some of those rare candies that I've been saving, bringing Tauros to level 78. I still have 4 left, but I really don't want to use them if I don't have to, as knowing of how low a level we can defeat these trainers at is key to forming my strategy for the second playthrough. While I've been gabbing away though, Tauros has been kicking butt and chewing bubblegum, and he's all out of gum. Back at the Ace Dragonite, but with this time in a much better position. I try my luck using Iron Tail first in the hopes that I'd get a defense drop. It sure would be nice to try out this run with a sheer force Tauros, but hidden abilities didn't exist in Gen 3. Oh well, we managed to take down Lance's final Dragonite, securing our win against the Doctor. Coming into the Champion's Champion, I did end up wiping against him twice before this attempt. His team is not to be sneezed at. Heracross is his lead at level 72, 13 levels above the Pidgeot it's replacing. Unfortunately though, even though Heracross is a powerhouse in its own right, all it's interested in doing is Rock Tomb, so we get by it unscathed. A powered up level 73 Alakazam is out next, but since we still outspeed it, we still delete it. Tyranitar at level 72 follows, replacing the level 57 Rhydon. Sandstorm kicks up for some chip damage, but with our Earthquake doing over half to Tyranitar, I'm not that worried. It knocks down our sub, but we knock it down. Level 73 Gyarados is out next, and I don't have my sub up, so we do take the Intimidate. With the Sandstorm damage in addition to our returns though, Gyarados falls. Reviewing the ranges, the crit didn't matter. Arcanine is also powered up to level 73 from 61, and because we haven't been able to reestablish our sub, we take a second Intimidate. I know that it wants to use Overheat, that's what wiped me in our last attempt, so I decide to use Substitute. Overheat is a ridiculously powerful move, but also reduces the user's special attack by 2 stages. I was planning to stall a second here, but it misses and falls to a critical Earthquake. Being at -2 here, the crit did matter. At level 75, Venusaur comes out, and we now enter the greatest back and forth exchange that I've seen so far on this run. Both of us are giving everything we got, kinda. Venusaur sets up the sun, doesn't Solar Beam, but goes full offense with Sludge Bombs, while Tauros, with its reduced stats, continues to chip away until finally, in the last rounds of combat, Tauros takes the edge and takes the victory! We've beaten the Round 2 champion. We congratulate ourselves while ignoring Oak as we walk with all of the victory swag to the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame Round 2. Hall of Famer. Famest? Fame. Tauros clocks in with a Round 2 time of 2 hours, 44 minutes, and 13 seconds at level 79 with a game time of 8 hours and 16 minutes. And a total of 37 resets. Hot dog, that feels good. But you know what? We can do better. Let's jump into playthrough number 2. Our first sticking point of the run was Brock, so we'll start with him. Based on our knowledge from the first playthrough, we know that knocking out everything in our path before Brock is the best strategy to beating him. Here, I've cleared every trainer and wild encounter to this point. It's a bit of a slog, but with a little luck on our side, Tauros clears through Brock on our very first attempt. From here, there really isn't much to talk about for a long time that we haven't already seen. I increased my mid-game grinding so that I would do it now instead of backtracking later. I clear out Cycling Road, Route 15, and about half the trainers in Sylph, and the Fighting Dojo. As a result of my grinding, my mid-game, which didn't really have any issues before, has even less now somehow because of our higher level. This mid-game grind also allows me to purchase TM23 Irontail early and have it in our back pocket for later. We'll jump straight ahead to Blaine to show the effects of this grinding. We now come into this fight at level 53, 8 levels higher than our first attempt in playthrough 1. At this level, we no longer really need to rely on Rain Dance to mitigate damage for us. This will come into play later as part of our round 2 strategy. But with a sub setup against Ponyta, Blaine falls to an onslaught of friendly returns from Tauros. We now come back to the meat and potatoes of these runs, the Elite Four. Lorelei is pretty much entirely unchanged from playthrough 1. We come into the fight without having used any rare candies yet at level 58. I'm saving my rare candies because they have more beneficial effect if I use them later. Higher levels require more experience to achieve. For example, Tauros has the slow growth rate, so the experience needed to go from levels 55 to 60 is around 52,000, but to go from 75 to 80 is around 99,000, almost twice as much experience. Therefore almost twice as much grinding. While I've been gabbing away though, we come into the Bruno fight where again most of the tactics remain the same as our first run. Most of our optimizations up to this point surround Tauros' XP and level. I do end up resetting once against Bruno as he goes for bulk up, which gives him just enough of a defensive edge over Tauros that he can't outdamage Machamp. We fall. It absolutely floors me how the tiniest unforeseen actions in these runs can have such dire consequences. Bulk up, a move that I saw maybe twice in my testing, pops up and causes a reset. It's part of what makes these games so fun to play, as no matter how many times you complete them, it will always be a different path. Even speedrunners with incredibly dialed in paths using RNG manipulation still need to deal with things randomly going wrong. Agatha is where we've made our biggest change for the league between runs 1 and 2. This time, when we enter her encounter, I have a move that actually hits her Pokémon. As a result, she's just as straightforward as she was before. Alright, Lance time. Before coming into this battle, I do use 5 rare candies, bringing Tauros to level 65, the point at which this fight started to become consistent. I get a little bit unlucky with the Gyarados, and we have to set up a second sub against it, but beyond that, the battle goes in our favor. We are off to the champion. I did end up resetting here once against some Arcanine is a monstrous Pokemon, but I bounced right back into this attempt. By the end of this attempt, things do get pretty dicey against the Venusaur because of the Arcanine again, but Tauros ends up taking it down, becoming the league champion once again. Something occurs to me as I walk towards the Hall of Fame. These results are optimized with a round 2 finish in mind, so they are not optimal to finishing the Elite Four, which will skew these results against the Kanto starters that didn't end up doing a round 2. Oh, and really quickly, Tauros clocks in with a round 1 time of 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 28 seconds with 6 resets and a game time of 5 hours and 37 minutes at level 68. I'll throw graphics up at the very end to show the improvements that we achieved. Also, I've had my first major goof on the production side of things. You see, my computer is about a decade old, and so in order not to go absolutely insane editing these segments, I've been splitting them into more manageable file sizes, meaning that I'm starting and stopping my recording at intervals throughout the runs. Silly me though, I didn't turn it back on at one point, so here we are at round 2 Bruno. His fight remains largely unchanged from round 1, just at a higher level, and on the final Steelix I forgo all strategy and just rely on my ability to out-DPS it. I'll use Agatha to quickly update you on how Lorelei went. Just fine. Her strategy remained the same as the previous run, except for this time we start at level 73 for the consistency. Against Agatha, we now see a similar trend. Substitute is such a powerful move against this league that it almost trivializes Agatha's fight. I play around with Mischievous a little bit near the end, but it's a foregone conclusion. Anyway, going back a few minutes, my thought process surrounding round 2 was bonus just for funsies content, but instead I ended up routing based on completing it. I've been playing with the idea of how I wanted to format my content as I've been making these videos so far, and I think I have an idea, but you're all gonna have to wait to see how that plays out. Lance's Gyarados is also trivialized by Substitute, but that isn't to say that his fight is trivial in any way. Lance is stacked with powerful Pokemon, and the slightest misclick on my part can end the battle, which happens a few times, until I get so fed up with constantly missing ranges and misclicking that I finally caved, altering my strategy, and leveled up to 75 over the next damage rounding threshold with a rare candy. This proved to be just what I needed to tip the scales in my favor, and we take down the Dragon Doctor. Alright, so with my flub against Lance, I am now slightly suboptimal for the champion based on my testing. I intended to come into the fight at level 78, but having to use that rare candy before Lance messed up our experience just enough that that's no longer possible. I did end up resetting once here before coming into our final attempt. Heracross can be annoying, but mostly uses Rock Tomb, which our sub can take 2 of without breaking. As always, we outspeed Alakazam, and the frail Psychic type falls to, like so many before it, a return. Tyranitar is actually a massive problem for us, and probably not for the reason that you're thinking. Tyranitar's ability Sandstream starts a Sandstorm. In Generation 3, weather that is initiated by a Pokemon's ability instead of being, cast, I guess, will last forever. This is a problem as it's constantly adding chip damage in the later half of the fight when we're trying to keep as much sustain for Tauros as possible. Tyranitar does fall to 2 earthquakes, but his weather is going to be a problem. Trying to set up a new sub against Tyranitar will never work as he will always just break it immediately. Gyarados is next, and because of the Tyranitar, we will always be intimidated here. It has a fair amount of randomness in its move selection, but it seems to follow patterns. In this fight, it isn't cooperating, but the most likely thing it will do is set up Dragon Dance. After that, it seems to have about a 50-50 chance of using either Hyper Beam or setting up a second time. If it sets up a second time, it will always use Hyper Beam or Earthquake next, most likely Hyper Beam. At 1 DD, we are still outspeeding, and so I use all of this information to try to augment my chances of setting up a sub before taking it out to avoid a second Intimidate from Arcanine. Alright, so Arcanine is hopefully where it all comes together. I hung on to Rain Dance in this playthrough and taught it right before this fight. We come out behind a sub, avoiding Intimidate. This gives us 1 turn to set up Rain Dance while Arcanine takes out our sub with, typically, Overheat. Overheat causes the user to lose 2 stages of special attack per use, so as long as I can keep the rain up, the Overheat will eventually not be able to break our subs. Typically, this allowed Tauros to heal up a little bit with leftovers while shifting the weather and odds back into our favor. Leaving the Arcanine with a sub, rain up, and as much health as possible is the goal here, but it's not always achievable. I come into Venusaur without a sub, but with the rain falling, which is, funny enough, great news for Tauros. Venusaur loves setting up Sunny Day to make its Solar Beams not take an additional turn to charge. Just like with Blastoise in the Charmander video, I can use the weather to outplay my opponent because I'm faster. Solar Beam does half damage in the rain as well, so you can see how as long as Tauros can continuously heal with leftovers, another reason why removing the Sandstorm earlier was so key, we can buy enough time to secure our position and finish off the Venusaur. Tauros has done it again, and this time, he's done it a bit quicker. Tauros clocks in with a time of 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 56 seconds at level 77 with a game time of 7 hours and 22 minutes and a total of 12 resets. 6 from round 1 and like 5 from round 2 Lance. So frustrating. Let's take a quick second to assess our results though. Our Elite Four Round 1 stats are an improvement of 25 minutes and 10 seconds of real time, with 27 less resets and 34 minutes less game time. We are at a slightly higher level, and that's primarily because of the additional grinding setting us up for Round 2. In Round 2, though, we see a real-time difference of 33 minutes and 17 seconds, with only 25 less resets, Lance, but 54 minutes less game time, and we finish 2 levels lower. All in all, I'm pretty happy with how Tauros performed. It was a welcome break to first stage starters, and as I develop my content and find my groove, I want to try some new ideas in the future videos. I've had my fun with a physical attacker, and I think I'd like to try my following run with a Pokemon that evolves, that I will allow to evolve. After all, these games were designed to be fun, and it is my full intent to have as much fun as possible. Thinking back to my days as a much smaller egg, I never wondered about how challenging I would make a run. I always wondered about how fun it would be to play through FireRed as a Machop, for instance, and actually be able to evolve into Machamp. But that's a future exceptional problem. For today, Tauros has kicked some goals and I'm already thinking of the next run. If you've made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much. I hope that you're enjoying joining me on my adventures. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next, as well as any feedback you have for me. Or just say hi. Hi! Anyway, thank you again so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you'd like to keep up to date with my releases. As we saw in the video, substrats are awesome, so if you'd like to contribute your sub to my strats, there's a metaphor in there somewhere. Take care, everyone.